Hello, my name is Jahg and welcome to another exciting installment of Jahg Teaches Java. Now, last time we had written a little plugin which I'm about to demonstrate again just to get us up to speed on where we got to with it. And whoa, it is dark. So let's fix that immediately. Times at 0. Boop, there we go. The plugin we created, as you can see, I'm in survival mode here with the sheep. Hello. And we created a little plugin that was called QC. And if you used it on its own, it changed you, and it would toggle you between the two important modes, survival and creative. And we added parameters so that I could specify names. Now this is obviously going to be me again, but you can see it's still working. And we also added detection for invalid names. So for instance, jahgbot is not on, so it'll tell us that. We added the ability to specify specific mode. Now I haven't coded it in yet, so I can't do it, but mode 2 would switch me to adventure mode. If I do mode 0, it switches me out into survival. So that's where we got to last time. And then we realized, well, there's a slight issue here, which is if I type something that's not a number, then what's going to happen to that? So if I put Bob there as the second parameter, boof, and it says nope, does not work. An error occurred. Poor little piggy knows there's an error. Oh gosh, long reach on creative. Whoops, sorry piggy. Anyway, so that's where we'd got to. We want to fix that particular error. So let's do that. If I disconnect from there, and if we look at this, you can see, oh, I typed Bob on a / bounty. Oops. So the error that's been created is number format exception for input string Bob. Now, it does tell us some extra information here about which line it was on as well as our code. So you can see there's always a reference to this plugin command because that's what I'm using here. There's my particular file name, Quick Creative, and because this is a debug version of my plugin, it's got extra code that says line numbers. So this is a line number. So I should be able to look at line 46 of my code and find out which line went wrong. Well, that shouldn't be too surprising. It's this one, where I've added a comment to say that this is where something we need to fix. So at the moment it says target game mode, which is an int, meaning a whole number. I want to get the number that was passed in. Remember, there are two arguments to this particular method, or to this particular command. There's the player name, which is args0, game mode, which is args1, and I want the integer value of it. So if that wasn't a number, then that's going to cause a number format exception. Now there are various ways we can handle this, more efficient ways, less efficient ways, and we need to think about which way we're going to do it. So in order to do that, I think I'll go with the simplest way, which is not the best way. And the simplest way is to basically wrap this line of code, or this block of code, because it'll have to be all of this, to wrap it in what's called a try-catch block. Now, the easiest way would probably actually be to put 0 there by default. And then what we're going to do is, I'm going to fix these errors in a minute. What we want to do is we want to try and run this line of code here, which is to grab that particular integer, that particular argument. Oh, let me close down this. That might make it run a little more sanely. So I want to grab this particular number. If that goes wrong, I want it to stop, or rather, not crash completely, as our plugin already does over here. You can see the output from that. So instead of crashing completely, I want it to try and run that line of code and catch any exception that has occurred. You've noticed that all these errors are called exceptions. So it's called exception handling, what we're doing here. We want to try and run all the code in between here, and if any line of it goes wrong, I know there's only one, but there could be many. If any line of this goes wrong, it will not crash the whole plugin, and instead we'll skip to the catch block and run whatever code we put here. Now we know there's only one real line of code here that could go wrong, and therefore only one error we're looking for, which is this, number format exception. And you can replace this word here, which says exception, with the word number format exception if you want to be specific. But we can be general about it and say any exception that occurs, come down here. we're going to assume that it means they didn't type a number there. We already know that the player that they've specified exists. We just can't handle the non-number they've put in. So all we're going to do for that is just put in a message like we did before. So in this particular case, we want player.sendMessage, and then we can specify message, there we go, and we can specify the actual text of that message. That's what we've got. We give it a message to work with and it will display it. So in this particular case we can say the game mode parameter must be a number. That's what we'll have there. That seems reasonable because we pretty much know that it's guaranteed that that's what's gone wrong. There's nothing else here that could go wrong. Now if we left it at that, it would still go wrong. Well, it wouldn't go wrong, it wouldn't crash my plugin, but it would keep the value specified up here, which means 0. 0 is survival mode. I don't really want that. If they've tried to specify a game mode that doesn't exist, then I want to fail gracefully. So all I'm going to do here is I've already given the error message for it. I'm just going to put a return true here. You remember the return statement is used to get a result back from a method. So up here it's the onCommand method. This is a built-in one that we're overriding. It returns a boolean, true or false, as to whether this plugin actually ran correctly. Now because we've trapped our error here, we said we'll try and run this, catch it if it goes wrong. We have indeed got a plugin that works correctly. The fact it didn't do what you asked because you didn't type a number is fine. That's fine. That's what we want it to do. So we give them a message, return true, to say we're done with it, and the moment Java code hits a return statement like this, doesn't matter the value that's here really, the moment it hits a return, it will skip the rest of this code that we've got here. So essentially it's like having another massive if around it that sends it down here, because we've only got return true down here as well. So that's what we've done. Let's see if that has the effect that we want it to have. So I should be able to build this. Let's do a partial build. Shouldn't take that long. Copying the file. There we go. So it's created my plugin. I need to copy it into this folder. So I've got that somewhere. Did I close the project? That's the project I need, my server one. I may have closed that window. Let's find out. No, yes, I closed it. Alright, on my desktop somewhere I have got this. Here we go. Now if I run nothing. I want to just paste it in here. There we go. So we've already got our existing version. I should have updated the version number, but I didn't. But never mind. I'm going to move this, or copy it rather, into my update folder. There it is. I should probably keep this folder on the screen. Actually, it's okay to have it closed. So there it is in the folder. If I reload this, there we go, reload is complete. It disabled that version, re-enabled itself, but it's been updated with the new one. I should be able to run this now and connect again, and we should see that this time we've got a plugin that is hopefully uncrashable. That's the goal we're looking for in any code anyway, to make it uncrashable. So if I just join this, there we go, you can see from the server there that I've logged in, slowly rendering the world. Hello sheep, where did the pig go? Oh, I see a zomble. I saw him in there somewhere. Grr. So we did quick creative, give it a name, and then give it any piece of text. There we go. Ta-da! Works perfectly. The game mode parameter must be a number. So far, so good. Now the next thing I want to do with this is I want to improve this plugin immensely in a very specific direction. Now at the moment what we have is a plugin which can be used by staff members of a server, by the ops. Now that's kind of okay, and this would work in a vast number of existing servers, but what we want is something a bit more modern. This idea of having a single type of staff member called an op has been built into this game forever, ever since the original vanilla server was created by Mojang. So we want to kind of get away from that and head towards something called permissions. Permissions allows you to set up different groups of players. Now I've already got this open here. If you just Google permissions bucket, that's the one I recommend. It's actually a plugin. The Bukkit server has got permissions built in, but this is better than that. in various ways. It allows you to manage it in game. It allows you to reload and do various other things that are quite useful to us. So Permissions Bucket is going to allow us to have different types of players. You could have an admin level, an op level, you could have maybe different donor levels for people who are giving money to your server to keep it running, as well as a normal player level. So giving them different permissions means they can do different commands, and that seems reasonable. So I want to download this. It's a plugin. You can go to this. I'll put the URL in the video description. We've got dev.bukkit.org, server mods, perm bucket. It's called Permissions Bucket. I'm going to download it. It's a relatively small plugin. It hasn't been updated in a while because it doesn't need to be updated. It doesn't actually have any particular bugs that I'm aware of. So I've downloaded that. If I investigate that, you can see it's 20k. It's tiny. Although, oh, didn't mean to clear that. Although compared to our plugin, which is only, what, 3k at the moment, that's kind of massive. Now, I'm going to go to the folder I've downloaded it into. Permissions Bucket -1.6 is what we've got here. I'm going to copy this into, or move it perhaps, into my plugins folder. And you can see I've got 2 plugins in there now. And I just need to reload the server. There you go, it does some stuff. You can see I've got a new folder over here now, and in it is a configuration file that I need to tweak a bit. Permissions Bucket allows you to set up permissions groups, so I need to do that before I can actually attach my my plugin directly to permissions. So a little bit about permissions here. 0 players registered means there's nobody online if you're looking at this server window. Now I'm going to take the config file and I'm just going to drop it into, oh, going to fail actually, to drop it into NetBeans, because NetBeans has a built-in support for editing this file. You can see there's a whole set of comments here. It's a YML file. I'm going to delete those comments. This is the default YML file for Permissions Bucket. You see they're using 4 spaces instead of 2. It's optional. You can do that as you like, but it mustn't be tabs. This is an example of a user. This is an example of a group. I'm going to set the groups first. Now I've got a default group who can't build. I've got a user group who can build. We don't need this because they're not going to have any. We're not having multi-worlds here, so I'm just going to delete that. Here are the admin permissions. They can use the Permissions Bucket. So it's giving admin group permission to use permissions, which is handy. But we can add more to that, same as we can add more here. Now, eventually, I'm going to want to add a permission to users to be able to toggle this themselves, because I've decided that's how I want it to run. Eventually, I'll move this perhaps into a donor group later or something. But for now, I'm going to add it here. Now, permissions have names. They can have any name you like. I call my plugin Quick Creative. It's usual to specify that as the first part of your permissions. I want, I don't know, quickcreative.qc. That's the name of the command. I'm going to set that to true. Now, at the moment, this permission does nothing because it does not exist. But I'm going to need it in my code. So that's the first thing. I've added that to the Permissions Bucket config file. That's just a server thing, nothing to do with your plugin directly. Now, I've added it to users. Now I do need to actually add myself to the users group in order to test this. So, I mean, you can look at the web page for all of these commands, but it's quite easy to do. Perm player set group, and then the name of the person and the name of the group. And you can see that now player jahg is now in user. Ah, darn it! And I had not reloaded my file, so it's written the default stuff. I'm going to have to delete that again. So let's do that, and there I am in user group. At least it wrote that correctly. What did I delete before? I deleted this and replaced it with my own permission. There we go. Right, so I'm going to save that. The other one you're going to need is perm reload, and it reloads the permissions from the file. There we go. It hasn't rewritten my file that time. Okay, so there we go. That's the permissions thing dealt with correctly. I'm going to leave that there for a moment. This is the permission we're interested in adding to our plugin. So let's do that. Now there are some things that you need to do in order to, or you should do, in order to expose the fact it uses permissions. Inside your plugin YML, you can actually specify the permissions that you want to add. So the permission I want to add is that one. And you specify various things about it, including a description. And I'm going to add that now. So the description of this particular permission is it allows the use of the QC command. That's a sensible description. Oh, command. There is also a default, and you can specify whether it defaults to true, meaning everyone gets it, or false, or to just ops. I'm going to use false because I want no one to have this permission by default. It just gets assigned by the staff of the server. Alright, so that's good. That's good. That's updated my permissions, sorry, my plugin YML file to know about permissions, but unless I do something in code, that has no effect whatsoever. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to extend this if statement I've already got here. Already we're checking to see if they're an op. Now I want to see if they're an op or they have this particular permission. So the way you check for permissions built in with Bukkit is you use player dot and then has permission, and it's a built-in, as you can see, it's a built-in method. It returns a boolean, so it's a true or false value, just like the isOp is a boolean value. Has permission though requires a parameter. Which permission are we looking for? Well, that one. It's a string. Oh, so it has to go in quotes, and I've mangled that. There we go. NetBeans likes to put in the double quotes for you. There we go. So it's a string. So if the player is an op, or they have this permission set on them, then, oh, don't need that, then we want to run this particular block of code here. That's what we want to do. Now I'm just going to let it reformat that so it's a bit clearer. So they're either an op or they have this permission. If they have both, that doesn't matter because one or the other can be true or both. So that should be it, essentially. Now, as I said, this is the built-in method. Now we do need to actually do some tweaking to get this working in all circumstances with permissions Bukkit, but this might do for us for now. Let's give this a go. So I'm going to upgrade the number of the version number for my plugin, and I'm going to rebuild it. There we go. Should only take a moment. And then I'm going to copy that back into my server, and we'll see what effect that has had. So where is he? There it is. Pop that into my update folder. Boop. There we go. It's 4K now. It's getting larger. So if we reload this, there we go. It disabled version 0.4 and loaded and enabled 0.5. So let's give that a go. Now, the first thing is I'm going to need to de-op myself. So I'll do that from the server. So now I should only have permissions set according to my group. jahg is in group user, so he has these permissions. So I can build, and I can apparently use this command, but that's all I can do. So let's give it a go. This server is already running. I should be able to pop into Minecraft quickly, give this a test, and we'll see what we get. Permissions are very powerful. They allow you to do all sorts of things with your plugin. You can have as many permissions as you want, as many commands as you want, and you, of course, using Permissions Bukkit plugin, you can organize them in a variety of ways. Now, I'm in creative, but it's nighttime, and I'm not an op, so I'll have to set the time from there. Now, according to the permissions, I shouldn't be able to do that from here. It should tell me I don't have permission. Good, because I'm not an op. But I should be able to use the QC command. And I can. So it's working perfectly because I have permission to do that. The other half of it, oh, should not have logged out. If I just op myself again, didn't mean to log out. There we go. It takes effect immediately. Opness doesn't affect permissions, so I should still be able to use the QC command. As you can see, I am indeed able to use the QC command. I'm an op, but I also have this user group. So that's that. Let's get rid of Minecraft, disconnect, and quit from there. Okay, permissions are very useful. Takes a little bit of sorting out because you have to do them in the YML file for your plugin, and you have to actively choose where in your code to use them. But once you've done those two things, it's just a quick little if statement. And obviously we can write if statements that says you don't have permission specifically for the permissions, but why? In my example, why would I bother with that? Because I've already got a message down here that says you cannot use this command. So that's that. We fixed a little problem with our code, so in fact I can get rid of this to-do item now. Be gone. And this plugin is pretty much as complete as I want it to be at the moment, I think. So in the next series, of videos for this series, we're going to work on another plugin. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to need to do a series of smaller videos which are going to teach small things like how to use a config file. See, permissions bucket uses a config file to do various things. Well, we're going to need to know how to use a config file from our code. We're also going to need to know how to store multi-step commands. For instance, if I start a command running and then I have to maybe hit a block in the world or place a block or something, then how do you know whether the player who's hitting a block has already started a command or not? So we need to do some examples of that. But once those things are done, I think we are then able to do the next interesting command, the next interesting plugin. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.